When I was a kid, I loved the idea of the ocean. Absolutely loved the idea of the ocean. Thought it was so fascinating. I mean, all these forms of sea life, and there's so much that we don't know about it. But back then, there was so little that I knew in relation to where I am right now. I've learned a lot of stuff over the years, but back then it was all basically brand new to me. Specifically, I love the idea of sharks. I loved the great white sharks. They were my favorite type. I saw Jaws and I was just excited by them ever since then. And then, of course, years later, I learned about the megalodon shark, and I've always been enamored with that thing. But the problem with being so enamored with the ocean, combined with having such a vivid imagination as a child, is that my imagination would often run away with itself. And this manifested more often than not in dreams or nightmares, depending on how you want to look at it. The most significant, really the most impactful, the one that I've never forgotten, was this dream where I was stranded out in the ocean. And I was, just this little kid paddling my feet, just paddling as hard as I possibly could. And I would scream out, I would scream, "Mom, Dad!" I would scream as hard as I could. And like nobody would answer. The weight of the world was pulling me down. Waves were just crashing in on me from every direction. And I would try my hardest to stay afloat. And ultimately, I would sink under. To this day, I have never forgotten that dream. As vivid and intense as it was, I've never forgotten that. It's always stuck with me. And the reason why I tell you that story is because in this video, I want to talk about a topic that is somewhat difficult to discuss. I want to talk about my struggle with depression. One of the big misconceptions people have is that depression is something akin to a cold, right? It's 60 degrees outside, you've got a t-shirt and you've got shorts on and you go for a walk and you walk your dog or something like that, and it doesn't really warm up and the wind's blowing just hard enough that it brings the temperature down to the low 50s, maybe mid 50s or something like that. You come back inside, you've got a bit of a sniffle. A day or two later, you got a sore throat. Before you know it, you're off to the races and you got a full-blown cold. A week later, you feel better. A lot of people liken depression to that, but it's anything but that. It doesn't come and go. It's not like in the span of 2 weeks, you suddenly feel better and man, I'm over my depression now. Everything's so much better. It doesn't work that way. For me, depression came on as a small thing, something that you don't even really notice, a kind of feeling that things aren't right. You wake up one morning and you're just kind of like, something's not right. Something seems a little bit off. And you don't really know what it is. And you don't really know what the trigger for it is. I mean, maybe you chalk it up to work. Maybe you chalk it up to school, that you're stressed, or you've got a new job, or you've recently moved, or maybe you had a breakup that wasn't the worst in the world, but certainly wasn't easy. Whatever the case may be, you find yourself in this position where you're looking around you and you say, I don't see any major shift here. So maybe I'm just not feeling very good. And then you kind of assume, well, I'll feel better by like lunchtime or dinner time or something like that. I'll feel better once I get a shower or something along those lines. But you don't. A day passes. 2 days pass, 3 days pass, 4 days pass, a week passes. You don't feel any better than you did before. If anything, this sense of unease has led to exhaustion. I was so tired all the time. And it was one of these things where the friends would call. Hey man, we're going to Marika's, we're going to Buster's, we're going to the Dame, Natasha's, any one of these places. You want to go? Man, I'd love to, but I am so exhausted. Work's got me exhausted. I'm exhausted. I'll catch up with you guys the next time you go out. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass. And your friends will stop calling because you always say no, or you just don't answer. To a person who's not suffering from depression, they would look at that circumstance, a lack of contact from friends, at least as consistent as they used to be. And they'll say, well, they kind of stopped calling because I stopped answering. So who knows what they're thinking, But to a person with depression, it doesn't work that way. That's not how you see it. They stop calling, not because you stopped answering, but because they don't care. They don't care about you. Up to this point, you've already experienced these feelings that you don't really matter. It's been kind of a thing on the edge of your mind that maybe I don't really matter that much. I mean, look at this job that I have. It's not that great. And look at these things that I don't have. Look at where I'm not at. And they start to sort of feed in on themselves. And this comes right with it. And it snowballs into this position where you look around and you come to this conclusion that you don't matter as a human being, that the life you live is meaningless, that it's worthless, that no one cares about you, no one wants to see you, no one wants to talk to you, that you're just sort of a human being occupying a space in the world. And that's it. That's the only role that you serve. This realization is dangerous for so many people, because some people get to this position and they never recover from it. And some don't survive it. Much like this dream that I had as a kid, you look around you. You look at this world that you're in, and you've got the weight of the world pulling you down, pulling you down. You've got these waves just crashing in on you, just trying to suffocate you and crush you. You look around, you scream for help. There's nobody there. The thing about depression is it is a chemical imbalance in the brain. More often than not, it's not something that you ever did. It's not something that you did to screw up. It's not a mistake that you made. It's how your mind reacted to a particular situation. What's interesting about this is that this perception you have that no one's there, this perception you have that no one cares, that you're just kind of free floating out there in the world, it's an illusion that depression pulls over your eyes to shield you from the absolute truth of the world around you. That where you would be in this ocean and you would look in these waters and you wouldn't see anyone, the reality of the situation is you've got everyone out there. You got friends, you got family. You got all these people out there in boats and they're screaming. I mean, you're screaming for help, right? Help me! You're screaming your ass off, and they're screaming back. They're throwing out these life, these lifesavers. Grab the line is what they'll say. They'll throw it out there. I mean, they're throwing out ropes. They're throwing out every conceivable thing. If it floats, it gets a rope tied to it, and it gets thrown out there. And they're all doing it. I mean, they're just like they're grabbing it, they're throwing it out. You don't pick it up, they reel it back. They grab it, they throw it out over and over and over again, and they'll do that forever. They'll keep on doing that in order to bring you back. The question you have to ask yourself is, what's the equivalent of grabbing that line and allowing your friends, your family, the people that care about you to bring you back? What's the equivalent of doing that? How do you grab the line? The first step is understanding where you are. The first step is looking around you, seeing where you're at in your life, and admitting to yourself that you are struggling with depression. The people you have in your life are your lifeline. Your friends, your family, the whole 9 yards. They care about you as a human being. The best thing you can do for yourself is to go to them and just say, hey, look, I need to talk to you. They'll probably be like, hey, where have you been? We haven't seen you in a long time. What in the world's going on? And you sit them down, invite them to your home, go to their home, go to a private setting where there's no pressure. You do not want to be sitting in the middle of a restaurant and have to spill yourself out there because you're going to hold back. You're going to keep a part of yourself sheltered because you're afraid of being judged by the world around you, people that don't know you. Go to a private place, sit down and talk to them and say, hey, look, I really need to talk to you about something. And when they ask what it is, you look them square in the eye and you tell them, I think I'm suffering from depression. And talk. Just talk and talk and talk. Just keep on talking. If they're any measure of a friend, they will sit there and listen. If they're any measure of a friend, they won't interrupt you. They won't give you bits of advice on how to fix everything. They will just let you talk and just keep on talking until you can't talk anymore, until you get every last bit of that out, and you'll cry. And there'll be times where you'll wonder whether or not you should keep on going, but you have to keep going. You have to get it all out, because what that does is it helps you come to grips with why you're in depression in the first place, because the triggers for why you're in this state aren't always known. It's not as though everybody who struggles with depression is walking around with giant purple letters over their heads saying why. It doesn't work that way. Instead, something happened in your life that led you to this state of mind. Talking will help you figure that out. From that point, you'll find yourself in a position where you'll begin to look around you and realize that the world is not nearly as dark as it seems to be. You're not nearly as terrible of a person as depression has led you to believe you are. And life is not nearly as hopeless as it seems. That in spilling your heart out to this person, you'll come to this realization they care about you, that everybody else cares about you, that your friends, your family, the whole 9 yards, that they care about you. From there, it'll be a road to recovery. And one thing to remember, it's not as though you'll somehow recover from depression at some point in time and never struggle with it again. It doesn't work that way. Talk to anyone out there who's ever struggled with addiction, whether it is something like nicotine and cigarettes or hard drugs or alcohol, and they will tell you it's a struggle every day. The difference between that and depression is that for me, it'll just creep up every once in a while. It won't be a daily struggle all the time. Instead, I'll be, in a position where I'm just sort of enjoying things and everything's sort of hanging out. And then I'll start to get these feelings of, and I'll realize that it's starting to come on again. And so from there, what I'll do is I'll force myself out there. I'll get out there and I'll talk to people. I'll go take a one-shot culinary course, learn how to cook sushi for a day or something along those lines. Because what it'll do is it'll get me out of this position of sinking back into where I was before. Because if what I do is I retreat into myself, if what I do is I come back home and I don't talk to anybody or anything, I'll end up right back where I was before. I'll sink right back down into that very dark place I don't want to be in. And so if you're in this position, talk to someone. Go see someone. Go see a professional. Go talk to a friend, a family member. Because I assure you, as you go through this process, you'll start to realize the person you felt like you lost, the version of yourself that you believed to be long since gone, didn't actually go anywhere. That they've been there the whole time. That version of you, that's the life of the party. That version of you that people love being around. That version of you that people love to talk to, they've been there the entire time. That because of your experience with depression, it's like having a trophy sitting on a shelf for decades. All it takes is a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of polish, and just go through there and start cleaning it up. As you do that, you'll start to uncover yourself. You'll start to realize, yeah, I'm the same person I've always been. You'll get to a point where you'll realize when the symptoms begin to come on, when you'll begin to start to fall down into this position and you'll pull yourself out, or you'll have someone help you get out of it. But the first step to getting back to who you were is recognizing that you are dealing with a pretty big problem. And the first step to fixing that problem is to tell someone. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. Hopefully this offered some insight to you guys. Hopefully it helps you guys. It helps you guys along the road to getting past this and getting into recovery and going back to the version of yourself that you want to be. Hopefully it puts you guys on a better road than the one that you're currently on. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and bring this video to an end, and I will catch you all later. Peace.